Welcome to our deep dive, you guys, into the history of New York City.
Ooh, New York.
Yeah, I mean, this deep dive's all about uncovering, those hidden layers
Yeah.
beneath those iconic skyscrapers, but
Wow.
bustling streets, all that. We're going to trace the city's journey, from like a humble trading post
Yeah.
all the way to the global powerhouse it is today.
It doesn't just present a dry timeline of events.
Right?
It unveils the forces that shaped New York.
Yeah.
From global trade immigration to those bold visionaries
Oh,
who dared to reshape the urban landscape.
yeah.
It's a story of ambition, struggle, and constant reinvention.
Kicks off in 1524 with Giovanni da Verrazzano.
Okay.
He's an Italian explorer. He spots this hilly island on the Atlantic coast.
Yeah.
And he writes a letter describing it.
Okay.
Not exactly a Twitter post, but hey, it's the first written account of what we now know as New York City.
Wow.
That's pretty wild.
So what's often overlooked is that Verrazzano wasn't just sightseeing.
Yeah.
He, like many explorers of that era, was on a quest for the Northwest Passage
Right.
to Asia.
Yeah.
That shortcut to the riches of the East,
Uh-huh.
it remained elusive,
Yeah.
but his journey really did set the stage for later exploration
Right.
and ultimately European settlement.
Right. In the New World.
Exactly.
Okay. And then comes Henry Hudson in 1609.
Okay.
He sails up the river that now bears his name,
Of course.
also searching for a direct route to the Pacific.
Right.
I find it fascinating that so many of these pivotal moments in history stem from ambitions that ultimately fell short.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, like a reminder that even quote-unquote failures can have a profound impact on the course of history.
Exactly.
Hudson's voyage, though unsuccessful in its original goal,
Right.
led to the Dutch establishing a trading post on Manhattan Island
Oh, wow.
just 15 years later in 1624.
Okay.
This outpost, New Amsterdam, marks the beginning of New York City's story.
And here comes the part that always blows my mind. The purchase of Manhattan Island
Oh, yeah?
from the Lenape people.
Right.
The story goes that Peter Minuit,
Yeah.
representing the Dutch, acquired this prime piece of real estate
Yeah.
for the equivalent of $24
Oh, wow.
worth of beads and trinkets.
Really?
Can you imagine the real estate moguls of today trying that tactic?
I mean, that's a steal.
I know.
It's a deal that has become legendary,
Right.
shrouded in myth, and likely exaggerated over time.
Yeah.
However, it does illustrate the complex and, let's be honest, often exploitative relationship
Yeah.
between European colonists and Native Americans.
Right.
This legacy continues to spark debate and calls for reconciliation even today.
Absolutely. The echoes of that past reverberate through the city's history.
Uh-huh.
But let's fast forward to 1664.
Okay.
England, always keen on expanding its colonial empire,
Yeah.
sees an opportunity during a war with the Netherlands. They seize New Amsterdam, and just like that, the Dutch era comes to an end.
Wow. So the city is renamed New York
Okay.
in honor of the Duke of York.
Okay.
But here's where it gets interesting. The Dutch influence didn't vanish overnight.
Oh, really?
You can still see it in street names like Wall Street,
Right.
which literally refers to a wall built by the Dutch to protect their settlement.
Oh, wow. So it's like a little, what do you call that? A little Easter egg
It is.
hidden in there.
It's a reminder that history is rarely a clean break.
Right.
It's more like layers upon layers,
Yeah.
with each era leaving its mark on the city's evolution.
Absolutely. And those Dutch roots extended beyond just names.
Right.
Their focus on trade and commerce laid the groundwork for New York's future
Yeah.
as a financial powerhouse.
It's like their legacy's interwoven with the city's DNA.
So this little trading post explodes in size, fueled by its prime location as a port,
Right.
but then comes a game changer.
Okay.
The Erie Canal, completed in 1825.
Now, most people know the Erie Canal connected the Atlantic Ocean to the Great Lakes,
Yeah.
which was a monumental feat of engineering at the time.
Totally.
But it did more than just shorten shipping times and cut costs.
Yeah.
It unleashed a torrent of westward expansion.
Wow.
It profoundly impacted the development of the entire nation.
That's what I love about history. It's all about those ripple effects.
Right.
It's not just about dates and names, but about understanding how one seemingly isolated event
Yeah.
can set off a chain reaction that reshapes the world.
Exactly. And New York City was at the epicenter of those changes.
Right.
Speaking of connections, we can't forget Cornelius Vanderbilt, the railroad tycoon.
Oh, yeah.
In the 1870s, he envisions a rail network that would solidify New York's dominance
Uh-huh.
in transportation and finance.
Right.
His construction of Grand Central Terminal
Yeah.
was a testament to his vision and ambition.
It's mind-boggling to think about how these seemingly separate threads,
Yeah.
like the Dutch emphasis on trade,
Yeah.
the Erie Canal, the rise of railroads,
Right.
all converge to create the conditions for New York City's explosive growth.
It's a testament to the city's ability to capitalize on opportunity
Yeah.
and adapt to change.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just infrastructure and trade that shaped New York City.
Yeah.
It was people, and not just any people.
Yeah.
Waves and waves of immigrants,
Oh.
drawn by the promise of a better life,
Right.
all contributing to the city's transformation into this melting pot of cultures.
Now, I've always found the term melting pot a bit perplexing.
Yeah.
Does it imply that everyone just blends together into some homogeneous mix?
Yeah.
Or is it more about the coexistence of distinct identities within a larger society?
That's a question that has been debated for generations.
Yeah.
But to understand New York City, we need to look at the specific experiences of those immigrant groups.
Okay.
For example, the video mentions the influx of Irish immigrants
Yeah.
escaping the devastating potato famine in the 1840s. Imagine the desperation, the
Yeah.
courage it took to cross an ocean
Right.
and start anew in a foreign land.
And their arrival was just the beginning.
Right.
The 20th century saw the great migration of African Americans fleeing the Jim Crow South
Right.
in search of better opportunities,
Ah,
a chance at true freedom.
of course.
It's a stark reminder that the American dream,
Right.
for many, was a dream deferred,
Yeah.
a struggle against systemic injustice.
And let's not forget about the countless other groups who arrived throughout the late 19th and 20th centuries.
Okay.
Italians, Poles, Albanians, Chinese Ukrainians, Armenians, Hungarians, and so many more.
Wow.
Each wave brought their own traditions, languages, and perspectives,
Right.
enriching the city's social fabric and challenging the very notion of a singular American identity.
It's almost overwhelming to think about the sheer diversity of experiences that converge in this one place.
Absolutely.
And the video connects this to the Statue of Liberty,
Right.
that iconic symbol of hope and refuge. The poem inscribed on its base, The New Colossus, speaks of welcoming the tired, the poor, the huddled masses, yearning to breathe free.
Those words became synonymous with the American dream,
Yeah.
with New York City as a beacon for those seeking a new beginning.
Right.
But the reality for many immigrants was far from idyllic.
Right.
They faced poverty, discrimination, and exploitation.
Yeah.
Their stories are essential to understanding the complexities of New York City's history
Right.
and the ongoing struggle for equity and inclusion.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that beneath the glittering facade of opportunity, there's
Yeah.
often a much harsher reality for those on the margins.
Absolutely.
But let's shift gears for a moment
Okay.
and talk about the physical shape of the city.
Okay.
As New York City swelled with newcomers,
Yeah.
it needed a plan,
Right.
a way to organize this rapidly expanding metropolis.
Uh-huh.
That's where the 1811 Commissioner's Plan comes in.
This plan, with its now famous grid system of streets and avenues, is often praised for its order and efficiency.
Okay.
But what's often overlooked is that it was a radical departure from the haphazard organic growth of cities in Europe.
Interesting.
It represented a deliberate attempt to impose order on the chaos of urban life,
Wow.
a distinctly American approach to city planning.
I'm struck by the fact that some people at the time actually feared that a grid system would make the city too monotonous.
Really?
It's hard for us to imagine Manhattan without its grid,
Right.
but it goes to show how visionary and maybe even a little controversial this plan was at the time.
It's a testament to how our perceptions of what makes a city livable change over time.
Yeah.
What might seem like a recipe for boredom in one era can become the foundation for vibrancy and complexity in another.
Yeah.
And of course, no conversation about New York City is complete without mentioning the subway.
Oh, the subway, that labyrinthine network of tunnels and tracks,
Yeah.
that keeps the city moving.
Keeps it moving.
The video mentions that the first subway line opened in 1904. And I can only imagine what a game changer that must have been.
Truly transformative.
Yeah.
The subway allowed people to live further away from their jobs
Right.
and connected the sprawling boroughs of New York in ways that were previously unimaginable.
Right.
It also had a profound impact on the social geography of the city
Uh-huh.
as different neighborhoods developed distinct identities.
Like Chinatown,
Right.
which emerges as a vibrant center of Chinese culture and commerce, a city within a city.
Exactly.
And then there's the notorious Five Points neighborhood,
Right.
a slum in the 19th century known for its poverty, crime, and gang
It's
violence.
a very different scene.
It's a reminder that not all of New York City's history is glamorous.
Of course.
There's a dark underbelly to this tale of ambition and progress.
And those darker chapters are just as important to understanding the full picture of New York City.
Right.
It's a story of both triumph and tragedy, of innovation and exploitation,
Yeah.
of dreams realized and dreams deferred.
Okay, so we've got this city exploding in size, shaped by trade, immigration, and ambitious infrastructure projects.
Right.
But what about the political landscape?
Okay.
The video takes us back to 19th century New York, where we see the rise of nativist groups like the Know Nothing Party.
Uh-huh.
They feared the influx of immigrants, seeing them as a threat to their way of life
Wow.
and their political power.
It's a reminder that the fear of the other is a recurring theme in American history,
Yeah.
often fueled by economic anxiety
Right.
and a desire to maintain existing power structures.
But on the other side of the political spectrum,
Yeah.
you had Tammany Hall, a powerful democratic political machine
Right.
that saw an opportunity in those waves of immigrants.
Yeah. Interesting.
Tammany Hall was notorious for its corruption and patronage.
Yeah.
But they also provided essential services to those newcomers,
Right.
helping them navigate the challenges of urban life
Of course.
and gain a foothold in American society.
Right.
It was a complex and controversial system, but it played a significant role in shaping the city's political landscape.
It's a classic example of the moral ambiguity that often permeates politics.
Yeah.
Were they simply exploiting vulnerable populations for their own gain,
Right.
or were they providing a much-needed lifeline to those who had nowhere else to turn?
Yeah.
It's a debate that continues to this day.
And it was in this turbulent political landscape that Fiorello LaGuardia emerged as a force for reform.
Okay.
He served as mayor from 1934 to 1945.
Okay.
And the video credits him with cleaning up corruption and modernizing city government.
LaGuardia was a fascinating character, a champion of the working class
Yeah.
and a fierce critic of Tammany Hall's excesses.
Wow.
He embraced the New Deal programs championed by President Franklin D. Roosevelt,
Okay.
using federal funds to improve housing, create jobs,
Uh-huh.
and expand access to essential services for everyday New Yorkers.
He sounds like a true maverick fighting against the entrenched power structures of his time.
Yeah, he really was.
And speaking of powerful figures, we can't forget about Robert Moses,
Oh, yes, Robert Moses.
the city planner whose vision shaped New York for decades.
Right.
The video describes him as both a visionary and a controversial figure.
Absolutely.
So interesting.
Moses was a master of navigating the levers of power.
Okay.
He held numerous positions, often simultaneously,
Wow.
allowing him to amass an unprecedented level of control over the city's development.
Oh, wow.
His fingerprints are all over New York City,
Really?
from highways and bridges to parks and public housing.
Wow.
The video even claims that it's almost impossible to move through New York City
Wow.
without encountering something that bears his mark.
That's wild.
He was a builder, a doer,
Uh-huh.
and he left an indelible mark on the city's physical and social fabric.
But his legacy is complex and contested.
It is.
While his projects modernized the city and created new public spaces,
Right.
they also displaced communities favored car-centric development
Yeah.
and often ignored the needs of marginalized groups.
Unfortunately, yes.
His approach to urban planning exemplified the top-down technocratic approach that was prevalent in the mid-20th century,
Right.
an approach that has since been criticized for its disregard for community input
Yeah.
and its often devastating social consequences.
It's fascinating how someone can have such a profound impact on a city,
Right.
yet their legacy remains so divisive.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that progress often comes at a cost,
Right.
and that the decisions made by those in power can have unintended and far-reaching consequences.
Absolutely.
And it's a reminder that history is not simply a collection of facts and dates.
Right.
It's a living, breathing narrative,
Yeah.
shaped by competing perspectives, conflicting values,
Yeah.
and the constant struggle for power and influence.
For sure.
And perhaps one of the most poignant examples of that is the tragic events of September 11th, 2001.
Oh, yeah.
The video draws this chilling connection to an observation made by a Spanish author,
Okay.
Enrique Jordiel Poncela, back in 1932.
Okay.
He wrote that New York skyscrapers seem to be bracing themselves against a danger that might come from the air.
It's eerie how his words written decades earlier would foreshadow that horrific day.
Right.
The destruction of the World Trade Center was a devastating blow to the city,
It was.
a stark reminder of its vulnerability in a rapidly changing world.
But even in the face of such immense tragedy, The city's resilience shone through.
Yeah.
From the ashes of Ground Zero rose the new One World Trade Center,
Right.
a symbol of both remembrance and renewal.
Yeah.
It's a testament to the indomitable spirit of New Yorkers, their refusal to be defeated by fear or despair.
It's almost like the city has this inherent ability to bounce back from adversity,
Right.
to adapt and evolve.
Yeah,
It's constantly changing, yet somehow it always feels like New York.
that's a keen observation.
Yeah.
One of the things that makes New York so fascinating
Yeah.
is that it's a city built on layers upon layers of history.
Right.
You can see it in the architecture, the street names, the stories that people tell.
Like those Dutch street names we talked about earlier.
Exactly.
Or the grid system laid out in 1811. It's still the framework for Manhattan today, even though the city has grown and changed in ways those planners could never have imagined.
Exactly. It's mind-boggling to think about how many lives have intersected on those streets.
Right.
How many dreams have been pursued? How many stories have unfolded over the centuries?
Yeah.
That sense of history is palpable.
It really is. You can walk down a street and feel the weight of the past.
Yeah.
The echoes of those who came before you.
Yeah.
It's almost like the city itself is a living, breathing museum.
But it's not just a static museum.
Right.
It's a dynamic, ever-evolving entity.
Yeah.
You have cutting-edge skyscrapers rising alongside historic landmarks, street art juxtaposed with classical sculptures.
Wow.
It's a city that embraces both tradition and innovation.
And that tension between the old and the new is part of what makes New York so vibrant.
I agree.
It's a city that's constantly pushing boundaries, challenging conventions, and redefining what it means to be a global metropolis.
Think about Times Square, for example. It's this iconic symbol of New York, with its dazzling lights and towering billboards.
Right.
But it also has a long and fascinating history.
Yeah.
From its seedy past as a red light district to its transformation into a family-friendly tourist destination.
And even within Times Square, you see that constant interplay of high culture and popular culture.
Right.
You have Broadway theaters showcasing world-class performances, just steps away from giant LED screens displaying ads for the latest blockbuster movies.
It's a city that embraces the spectacle.
Yeah.
The over-the-top, the larger-than-life.
Totally.
Yet amidst all that grandeur, you also find moments of quiet intimacy.
Right.
A small bookstore tucked away on a side street, a hidden garden, offering a respite from the urban hustle, a street musician serenading passersby with a haunting melody.
Those little moments of unexpected beauty,
Right.
those glimpses into the soul of the city are what make New York so captivating.
Absolutely, and they remind us that even in a city as vast and overwhelming as New York, there's always something new to discover, something that surprises and delights.
Right.
It's a city that constantly rewards curiosity and exploration.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the history of New York City, I'm curious,
Yeah.
what stood out to you the most? What aspect of New York's story resonated with you?
Was it the audacity of Peter Minuit buying Manhattan for a handful of beads?
Yeah.
The sheer scale of Robert Moses's projects?
Right.
The city's ability to rebound after 9/11?
Yeah.
Or maybe something entirely different?
We'd love to hear your thoughts. It's like that saying, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere.
Right.
New York has this reputation for being a tough city, a demanding city, but also a city that rewards those who are willing to put in the effort.
And that grit, that determination
Yeah.
is woven into the fabric of the city.
Great.
It's in the hustle of the commuters,
Yeah.
the ambition of the entrepreneurs, the creativity of the artists.
It's also in the everyday acts of kindness. The way New Yorkers look out for each other, the sense of community that emerges in times of need.
You see it in the way people rallied together after 9/11,
Right.
in the countless acts of generosity during the COVID-19 pandemic,
Yeah.
in the simple gestures of helping a stranger navigate the subway system.
It's a reminder that beneath the hustle and bustle, there's a heart to this city.
Absolutely.
A sense of shared humanity that binds people together, even in the midst of such incredible diversity and constant change.
Yeah, it's that spirit, that blends of grit and heart, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
That makes New York so unique.
it's true.
It's a city that challenges you, pushes you to your limits,
For sure.
but also embraces you with a sense of belonging,
Yeah.
a feeling that you're part of something bigger than yourself.
And that's ultimately what makes New York such a compelling place.
Right.
It's not just a collection of buildings and streets.
Right.
It's a living, breathing organism.
Yeah.
Made up of millions of individual stories,
Yeah.
hopes, and dreams.
All intertwined in this intricate urban tapestry.
And those stories are still being written.
Always.
New York is a city in constant flux, constantly evolving, constantly challenging itself
Yeah.
to be better, to be more inclusive, to be a beacon of hope for the future.
So as you continue to explore New York, whether in person or through other sources,
Right.
I encourage you to keep in mind the layers of history,
Yeah.
the diverse voices,
Right.
the struggles and triumphs that have shaped this remarkable city.
Think about the questions this deep dive has sparked for you.
Yeah.
What aspects of New York's history do you want to delve into further?
Yeah. What are you curious about?
What stories are you curious to uncover?
Maybe you'll be inspired to visit that little museum dedicated to the history of the subway.
Right.
Or finally check out that walking tour of the Lower East Side.
Or maybe you'll simply start noticing the details around you with fresh eyes.
Yeah.
The echoes of the past embedded in the present.
That's a great point.
Because New York is a city that rewards those who pay attention. Absolutely.
Who are willing to look beyond the surface and discover the hidden gems that lie beneath.
It's a city full of surprises.
So keep exploring,
Yeah.
keep questioning, and keep discovering the magic of New York City.
I love that.
This deep dive was just a starting point,
A little taste.
a glimpse into the rich and complex tapestry that makes up the city's story.
Exactly.
Thanks for joining us on this journey through the history of New York City.
Yeah, thanks for sending in the video.
Until next time, keep those brains buzzing,